So my name is Kevin Thompson and my job role is I'm a clinical nurse specialist here at Keach Hospice.
Fantastic. How long have you been here for?
Just gone up to my first year, March the 7th.
What do you do in your role here at Keach?
That's a very good question. So my role is principally to provide leadership to the nursing team, which I do on a daily basis. But my role extends to ensuring that I have an overview of everything that's happening in the hospice. So I have an overview of the Wellbeing Centre and some of the community teams as well, and help out where I can. But principally it's about leadership.
Right, Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about what hospice actually means from a clinical perspective?
So I think from a clinical perspective, hospice represents a specialist level of care that is aimed at patients who have a life-limiting illness. That's at its simplest, yeah.
And a life-limiting illness is?
So primarily a life-limiting illness from our perspective, obviously we have patients from an oncology cancer background, but we're extending our services to reach people with other major diseases, so heart failure, renal failure, some of the neurological conditions like Parkinson's or motor neurone disease. So realistically, the history of hospice has been forged on oncology and cancer, but the newer sort of trends and movements of hospice is to encapsulate as many people as we can with a life-limiting condition.
And what does hospice mean to Keach Hospice?
That's a really good question. I think to Keach Hospice it would encapsulate everything I've just said, but I think most significant for Keach it was about our local population, it's about our local partnerships with people who we work with in the charitable sector. It's about reaching out and ensuring that we, along with other hospices, but primarily Keach, focus on breaking down those barriers and myths to people who might be fearful of engaging with hospice services. And I think further still, it's about ensuring that people have equal access to our services and they know how to access them and providing all that love and support that we do. Yeah.
What myths do you hear about hospice that you know are not true?
So the main myth I hear about hospice is that it's all about dying, and actually it isn't. It's so much wider than that. It's actually about providing quality of life in the time remaining. That's the main myth that I think needs to be debunked. The other myth is that hospice is always a sad place. It's rarely a sad place, I find. I think it's actually a place that cherishes life and it cherishes the time remaining, and it's a fun place. I mean, we have fun. I think that's the biggest myth that I get from patients, families, students. Everyone has this kind of belief that it's very somber, and it's not. It's completely the opposite.
Lovely. Do you have any anecdotes of where a patient has come into our care, whether that be for end-of-life care or symptom management, and you've been able to really get a grip on their condition and help them live for as long as they can, as well as they can?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't have like a bona fide bespoke person, but as an anecdotal story, I would say that most people have those myths at a certain level. They will be fearful, they will be anxious about coming in. And I would say from my experience over my career, they very soon feel increasingly safe, and it's very common that families and patients will say, I wish we'd done this earlier. The balance I think for us to strike is to try and empower people if they are going to go home, and we're going to break those myths, or they're going to go on to another area of care, is for them to maximise the time that they have remaining with quality of life. And I think that's a slow feed over time, and I find that so rewarding that we empower people, we empower them with their condition, we can empower people with their symptoms, we can give them that power that they can almost self-manage. And I think it's just really rewarding when people are discharged, that families feel that was never going to be an outcome that they envisaged. They never thought discharge was something that would happen. But yeah, that's really lovely when we do that, when we can encapsulate that. And to also shift the focus from fears about dying to hope about living. in the time that remains. That's what I love.
And would you be happy to share, you know, we spoke earlier
Yeah.
about, and you could change the gender if you wanted to, if you felt like that was more appropriate around having the conversation about acceptance. So if you wanted to generalise a bit more, so it didn't, it was anonymised, up to you. But
Yeah. Was that in relation to like a particular person?
yeah, so the person you're having a conversation with about, well, I have to accept it, don't I? And
Oh.
you said,
Right, I'm with
Yeah.
you. So yeah, this is yeah, it's a good example. So acceptance is something that is not always achieved, and I think for some patients, something that we see a lot in their kind of psychology is this sense that they feel frustrated and they feel a whole raft of emotions. But this one particular person that I was speaking to told me that, you know, they just need to accept this. And I suppose it was just at that point, I just felt secure enough to say, you know, do you have to accept this? And I could sense it had thrown them a bit of a curveball, and they said, well, you know, I have to. And I said, do you have to? Like, that's quite a lot of controlling sort of, you know, it's very sort of shoulds and oughts, and you know, I think it just jolted their thinking for a while. And again, what I love about my job and hospice is they didn't actually reply to me to say anything, but it was just that moment that we shared. And I think it's just those little moments that I think can just challenge people's thinking about that. And sometimes you may hope that that is the first step to moving towards acceptance. It's just a nice thing to be able to do. It's really nice.
love this guy. Is there anything else you would like to know? Do you want to know about how we care for, you know, different cultures and things like that? Or do you think you've kind of got what you want around care and
Kevin,
hospice?
you've done really well by
Oh, okay.
covering the majority. But yeah, I 100% agree. Maybe briefly touching up on how, you know, you care for like the diverse group would be something.
Yeah, totally.
So if we talk about, you know, what inclusion means, so, you know, I think asking the question, what's important to you?
Yeah.
That's so much more than kind of gender or sexuality
Yeah.
or ethnicity.
Yeah.
So what does that mean at Keach? What do we do to make sure that we see that whole person and ask them?
It's a really good question. I think obviously from a starting point of what's important to you is the kind of entry level. But I think what fills my heart with joy is when people learn how to express that freely, because I think at the beginning, along with the myths about hospice, they're not always certain how to answer that question. You know, maybe they may think what's important to them is going home and they feel fearful about giving that out, you know, or they might feel what's important to them is their pet dog or their pet cat, and they might feel fearful that seems silly in the context of things. So that's something we revisit almost daily, really. And I think we should never lose sight of that. In terms of like the population that we said, we do sit in a very multicultural, diverse region, as we know, and that presents challenges to make sure that we keep our care person-centred, but it also presents opportunity for us to learn and grow, like what's important to them, maybe something I never considered because of my own upbringing and my own background. So I'm thinking of an Asian gentleman that we both had a very good connection with, you know, and what was important to him was, you know, family, which is very common in the Asian community, but also about giving back. I think that's the sense that we pick up a lot with some of our communities. It's a sense of, to have a life worth lived, there's a component of giving back, whatever that means to them. And for him in particular, that was really important. It often starts at a very simple entry level, like I want to give a present for you and the nurses, and sometimes that extends to, you know, I want to leave something a bit bolder, a bit more of a legacy, you know. So that is really, really powerful. I like that. That's nice to work with.